Alright, so unless you have been living under a rock, you probably heard of this ABSD news, right, in the Singapore property market. They have came out over the past 1 week, so there have been a lot of talks about it. Alright, and for those of you who are have not heard of this news before, let me just go ahead to explain to you what has happened over the past 1 week. Right, so essentially, right, the government has introduced what we call high yield ABSD last Thursday on like the 27th of April, which last Thursday, so it's like a 1 week has passed. All right, and they have kind of introduced this higher ABSD on Singapore citizens buying the second home and above. So second and third property, the ABSD additional buyer stamp duty will be raised from 17% to 20%. All right, and also for PR as well, for second and third property, that will be raised as well. And the key here is that for foreigners, right, the ABSD was like 30%. Now it has been almost, in fact, it's been doubled, right, from 30% to 60%. Right, this is kind of like a way for the government to kind of like promote what they call a sustainable property market. All right, and they introduced a fresh round of cooling measures just last Wednesday night, right? So this news has been around. I would say that we saw some weakness in the property stocks in the Singapore market. Later we'll look through some of the property stocks to see where are we for some of the more popular property stocks, right? Could there be bargains, right, based on this news, or they are actually still looking quite strong and could be an opportunity to kind of like position yourselves to ride the reversal. Right, so this is what we look at with some of the Singapore stocks. So this is the ABSD news that's been out. All right, so yes, rate will be raised 17 to 20% for Singapore citizens buying the second residential property, and from 25% to 30% for those buying their third and subsequent property. So I would say that this whole entire ABSD news is a good way, right, for the government to kind of like cool or dampen investor demand, because they don't want property prices to go ahead of economic fundamentals to rise too fast. All right, and that's not what they want, because ultimately, there are talks about recession, interest rate is high. They want people to be cautious and prudent, and that's why they have this, ABSD hike. Okay, this is what they have done previously over the past like 2 years. All right, and now they are kind of like just increasing the dosage, right? So, government has hiked before, now they're just kind of like hiking a little bit more. All right, except for foreigners, it's like a huge jump from like 30% to 60%, right? But this is pretty much what the government has done, and this is like the third round of cooling measures in the past 16 months, right? And they have kind of like started in December 2021. All right, so why is the government doing this, right? So basically, for ABSD, the government has kind of like monitored in terms of like home prices index. So you can see that home prices have gained like 3.2% in the first quarter of 2023, compared with 0.4% in the last quarter of 2022. All right, so they want to kind of take preemptive measures to make sure that it doesn't rise too fast, right? And if left unchecked, prices could run ahead of economic fundamentals, and that's a good thing. So in my opinion, I would say that these cooling measures, right, or this hike in ABSD, it can be a good thing. You don't want the government to act too late, right? You want to act preemptively, all right, to curb any rise in property prices, all right, that is kind of like ahead of fundamentals. So just by doing this, that it makes the whole entire property market a little bit more resilient. All right, and it kind of like dampens some of those investor demand. And in fact, most of the Singaporeans who are buying their first property, whether you're a married couple, you're buying like the husband buy one, the wife buy one, or just buying your first property, most Singaporeans are not affected. Most PRs are not affected. It's still the same. Right? For PRs, it's a 5% ABSD. For Singaporeans, it's 0% ABSD if you're getting your first property. So most people, in fact, 90% of transactions are not affected. Right? Only like about 5 to 10% of people, those foreigners or those who buy like second or third properties, you have a lot of cash. All right, then yes, that's where you'll be affected by this ABSD hike. But most Singaporeans will not be affected. So it's a good thing. It's a good move so that we kind of like cools off the property prices a little bit, all right, and stabilize it a bit, so that it's a very strong and resilient property market, right? There will not be like sudden crashes based on recession and all that, because those who buy, all right, they have the cash, right? They have the cash. They're all one property. It's not like multiple properties like what we saw in like 1997, the financial crisis and all that. We saw property prices really coming down very fast, because then there was no ABSD, there was no like TDSR rules and all that. It was just, people can just buy how many properties you want as long as you have the cash. All right, and when things turn, it can turn really fast. But right now, with all these ABSD, and property prices are still maintaining very strongly, all right, and in fact, going high. In fact, let's take a look at this news that just came out yesterday, all right. Strong sales at Blossom's by the park, right? And this was like kind of like the new launch that happened after the ABSD hikes, right? And most people are suggesting that, well, it seems like it may not cool property prices. So we have this new launch called Blossoms by the Park in Buona Vista, and it was surprisingly strong take up. We have a 75% take up. And many analysts are kind of like questioning if the latest measures will kind of like sufficient to cool prices and even demand. So they sold off like 205 of 275 units, and this was after the ABSD was announced on the April 26th, right? So this was after that, and people are still rushing to buy, right? And in fact, what they say is that about 96% of buyers are Singaporeans and PR. So only like 4%, which is like those like foreigners and all that. So most, as I mentioned, most Singaporeans and PRs who are buying their first property would likely not be affected. So there's a lot of pent up demand, all right? And I would say that it still is good, all right? I mean, in terms of the property market in Singapore is still strong, it's still resilient, and it's a healthy move by the government to make sure that property prices do not go out of hand. Alright, so this is pretty much the ABSD hike news that have came out over the past week. So let me just go ahead to share with you on this, right, in terms of some of the property stocks. So a lot of people asking me in terms of the property stocks in the Singapore market. What are some of the more popular property stocks? So let me just share with you these 5 property stocks that are quite popular in the Singapore market. And the first one will be like City Development, City Dev. We have like Propnex, one of those real estate agency, or one of the leaders. We have APAC Realty, another real estate agency in Singapore. We have like UOL, a property developer, and of course we have Wing Tai, right? So these are kind of like the 5 most popular property stocks in the Singapore market. So let's just go ahead to dive into each of these stocks, right, to see where we are, all right, and if there are any opportunities, right, based on this whole ABSD news that came out, or perhaps none of it has changed, right? Maybe they did not even sell down that much and they are looking strong and they are even pushing higher. We'll kind of discover that as well. So let's go on to the first stock, which will be like CityDev, Propnex, APAC Realty, UOL, and then Wing Tai. And at the end of it all, I'll share with you what are probably the 1 or 2 stocks which I like, which I feel that has a little bit more potential. One of those that the trend looks quite good in terms of the upwards direction, and that's where you can also think about positioning yourself. So let's dive into the first stock right now, and that will be CityDev. So the first property stock is this property developer called CityDev, right? City Development, all right? And you can see that it is trading at about 6.96 right now. So let me just go ahead to cover where we are and where can we potentially head to. So you can see that since last year for City Development, we have been kind of like consolidating sideways. Look at this right here: swing up, swing down, swing up, swing down, and it was in this range right here, which is about that 750 to about that $8.50 level. That was pretty much the range. 750 to 850, we're just moving up and down sideways, right? And somewhere around like February, right, even before this whole ABSD rate hike news, right, somewhere around here you can see that we kind of like broke down this support level. The 740, 750 support level kind of like gave way. We broke this support, went all the way down, and we consolidated at a lower phase. Look at this right here. So this 740 became kind of like a support turn resistance level. You can see we touched about 1, 2 times, 3 times, and we just couldn't get back up a bit, all right, above, and we consolidated for a while and we broke down again, all right. And what was the support level that we broke down? Well, that would be the psychological $7, right? So right now we are like 6.96, which is just below $7, right? And I would say that there are some signs of weakness in the short term, all right, below this $7. Why, right? So very simple, just by looking at the trend, right? Just by looking at the moving averages, you can see that this 100 days moving average, the red line and the blue line, you can see that all these moving averages are all starting to point down. In fact, they have pointed down since like 1 or 2 months back, pointing down. And of course, they're pointing down with prices breaking like a support level, like it broke the 750, it broke the $7. Not a good thing. Not a good thing in the short term. In fact, I would say that if we do stay below like $7 right now in the short term, we can potentially see a little bit of weakness all the way towards the next support level. I'm not saying that it will 100% go down, but anything below 7, it just looks a little bit weaker, right? And we can attempt to push even lower because there are signs of the downtrend, right, in terms of the moving averages pointing down. Right, so where can we potentially head to? Well, very simple. Look at this right here. The recent low that we've seen in 2021 or early 2022 will be right over here, right? Somewhere around here, you can see we rebounded. I think that would be somewhere near what we call the $6.20, right? 620 to 630. Let me just go to draw some of those downside targets that can potentially happen as long as we stay below 7. All right, of course, if you can go back up above 7, great, right? That would be a good thing. That's where we can consolidate back to the higher phase, right, from like 7 to 740 again, great. But if we stay below $7, not so good. Downside could be revised, even lower in terms of downside targets. It could potentially hit to where we were somewhere in 2021, all right, to about 620 to 630 as to where we were then, and that's where we saw a couple of bargain hunting, a couple of rebounds. That is potentially where we can hit to before some bargain hunting comes back again. All right, so this is City Development. Just take note of some of the key levels that I mentioned. All right, anything below 7, it just looks a little bit weaker in the short term. Okay, next stock would be Propnex, one of the real estate agency in Singapore, and it is trading at about 1.08. So I would say that this stock is one of the stocks that I like the most in the property sector. It has shown a very, very strong uptrend, right? Even before this whole rate hike news since last year, it has been pushing up. And in fact, prices has adjusted downwards over the past week. So you can see that this was on the 28th of April, right? Ex-date of this bonus issue. So just last Friday, it was like the X-date whereby they did a 1-for-1 bonus issue. That means if you have like 1, you get an additional 1 share for free. All right, but nothing's for free, so prices have kind of like adjusted downwards by half. So it was like about $2 then, $2 prices, but $2 became about like $1 plus divided by 2, right? So it's half, all right, because you get this bonus issue, bonus shares, and of course there was an ex-dividend as well. And you can see that prices was in fact holding quite well even after the X-date of the bonus issue and the dividend. Prices actually attempted to push even higher. So right now what we're looking at is the adjusted prices after the bonus issue, the 1-for-1 bonus issue on the X-date 28 April 2023. All right, and also the dividend that they gave. All right, so you can see 1.08 right now. So I would say that, as I mentioned, Propnex is one of those pretty strong uptrending stock. In fact, right now support level will be right over here at about the $1. So it was like $2, but now it became $1 because it's all adjusted downwards by about half. So I think support right now would be at this psychological $1 level with a little bit of resistance somewhere around that $1.10, right? $1.10. It seems like we are kind of like attempting to stay above with the 110, but $1 would be this psychological support level whereby we want to hold above. As long as we stay above $1, I think the uptrend still looks quite intact. It can actually attempt to push even higher to find a new high, all right, even after this whole bonus issue whereby prices have adjusted downwards. It's much more affordable, all right, and it can actually attempt to push even higher from this adjusted prices. So that's a good thing. Anything above $1, it looks quite good. If we break above that 110, we stay above, then we can potentially see it retrace or maybe trade all the way higher towards the 120 to 125. I think that is the most recent high whereby we saw some heavy selling. I think it has gone up by quite a fair bit, so people started to take some profit, based on the ABSD hike news as well. Or in fact, it went up on that day, but then the next day people started to take some profit. So yeah, 120 to 125, that is where some selling can come back again, looking at the spike up by more than 10 to 15%, or in fact more than 20% based on this targets that I've drawn from $1 all the way to like about $1.20 to $1.25. Okay, so this is Propnex, one of those stocks that I like. I feel that it's one of those stocks that you can consider. Anything above $1, it still looks quite good in terms of the uptrend. Okay, let's move on to the next stock, which would be APAC Realty, right? APAC Realty. So guys, if you like this video so far, I would appreciate if you can give me an early thumbs up. That would really help out the channel. And thank you so much for doing this. And of course, smash the subscribe button as well. That would be really helpful so that you will not miss out on any videos like this. All right, so let's move on to this stock right here called APAC Realty. Also something like Propnex, this is a real estate agency. They own the ERA real estate agency brand. All right, and it is currently trading at about 0.615. So you can see that for APAC Realty, we did see kind of like a trade down on this. It was like a gap down on this date right here on the 27th of April. So for those of you who don't know, basically it's not just the bad news on the ABSD, but also they come like ex-dividend on the 27th of April. They're giving out like about 3 cents, right, 2.75 cents. So it kind of like dropped a little bit more than the dividend. It was like 0.66. It went to about 6.1. So it dropped a little bit more than the dividend amount, right? And we are back to that support at about that 60 cents. So if you look at Propnex compared with APAC Realty, you can see that they look a little bit different. As I mentioned, Propnex is one of those uptrending stocks since like end of last year. There were already signs of the uptrend forming, and this uptrend has continued to play out until today, until like January, Feb, April, May, until now. This uptrend has already played out, right, and it's still continuing to play out, right? But for APAC Realty, it has not really played out yet in terms of the uptrend. But there are signs of the uptrend just starting, right, to happen. What do I mean by that, right? So basically, as I mentioned, we can look at the moving averages, right? We look at the 100 days moving average and the 200 days moving average. So since like last year was a bit of a downtrend. We formed lower highs, in fact lower lows. It kind of headed down, and all the way to like 50 cents. We found a little bit of a bottom. And you can see right now, as we started to push away from the bottom, we are kind of like consolidating slowly at a higher phase each time. Wow, the moving averages, look at this right here, the 100 days moving average, the red line, has finally crossed back above the blue line. So 100 days red line above the 200 days moving average blue line somewhere around last month. Finally, right, that is a sign or a potential sign of the trend turning from like down to sideways to potentially up. So it's a little bit different from Propnex, because this is what we saw in Propnex in like end of December or January, right? But right now this is just happening for APAC Realty. So I think it looks quite good, right? As long as we stay above some of those support levels, it looks quite okay. And what would be that support level now? Well, as I mentioned, the support level will be right here at that 60 cents. Right? You can see that since like January this year, we have found a bit of support at 60 cents, it rebounded. We are back to this 60 cent support. So right now, the consolidation phase could be from 60 cents all the way to 65. It might just consolidate here, up and down after the ex-dividend date. It might just consolidate here, 5 cents range, and eventually, hopefully, if we break this 65 cents, let me just change this to red in color because it's like a resistance. If we do break that 65, 66 cents, that's potentially where we could trade a little bit higher back to that previous high, which would be the next resistance, about that 70 to 72 cents right over here. That is where potentially some selling can come back again, right? So this is APAC Realty, a little bit different from Propnex. It still looks quite good. There are signs of the uptrend just starting to happen, but we need more confirmation. We need it to stay above this very key support, which would be the 60 cents right now. Alright guys, so we have covered CityDev, we have covered Propnex and APAC Realty, the two real estate agencies. So two more property developers in the Singapore market that I will cover, and that would be UOL and Wing Tai. So let's go on to talk about UOL right now to see where we are and if there could actually be an opportunity, or where could you want to think about taking some profits or getting out, because we are just seeing a lot of selling at this level. Well, let's take a look, right? So this is UOL trading at about 7.12. So you can see that for UOL, it has not really been affected that much. I mean, compared to like CityDev, whereby it sold off, it broke support. Whereas for UOL, in fact, it has rebounded a little bit, all right, after selling down last week based on the news. So 27 April, you can see right here on this news, this was a red bearish bar, on the 27th of April, pretty much when they announced the news. The next day, the market sold off, property stocks sold off. So it kind of like sold off, and we have pushed away from the longer term moving averages right here. You can see that this is where the 100 days moving average, the red line, and the blue line, which is the 200 days moving average line is, right? So yeah, I kind of like push away from this 680 support level, and it seems like we are making our way back up to that resistance at about 720. So let me just draw this for you. I think 720, right over here, 720 will be what we call that resistance level right now, from 680 all the way to about 720. That is kind of like the range, right? That's kind of like the range as we push towards 720, we might see some selling happening again, right? All the way up to 720, and of course, if that breaks, great, right? We can potentially see a little bit more upside all the way to 750. I think 750 would be this very critical resistance level whereby you want to take note. We can see a lot of selling there. Why? Because you can see since last year, in fact, since 2021. This $7.50. Look at this, right? We touched a couple of times, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Went down, we neared it, went down, went down, went down, went down, went down. All right, 750, we like 5, 6 times we hit it there, and prices just comes all the way down, right? So if it ever hits to near 750, of course, that's assuming that 720 were to break. We hit to 750. I think that is where we can see some heavy selling, and that's where you want to also think about taking some profits, putting some money in your pocket, all right, and then thinking about what to do to get in on dips again, right? So this is UOL, right? It looks quite okay as long as we stay above that 680 new support level. And also you can see that this 680, all right, besides it being where the longer term moving average line are, all right, you can see that at this point in time, the red line, all right, the 100 days moving average has also crossed above the blue line. So in terms of the 100 days moving average rate above the blue line, these are all signs of the trend, all right, just starting to turn up. It's not confirmed. I mean, it's only like 1 week plus that it just went above, but as long as we see this, there are signs of the trend just starting to turn up. But we want to stay above certain support levels. So in this case right now, since it coincides with the 680, since that's where it rebounded last week, 680 would be that support level, right, whereby we stay above, this uptrend can potentially start to form up, right, and it can slowly start to push higher to 720 to 750, and that's where selling can happen again. Okay, the next property developable in Singapore called Wing Tai, right? Wing Tai right here trading at about $1.55. So you can see that since September last year, right, for the past, I'd say 7 to 8 months, we have been pretty much consolidating sideways for Wing Tai. You can see that we have been moving up and down right here from about 157. We swing down, swing up, swing down, swing up. So that is kind of like the range right now from 145 all the way to somewhere around that 157. 158, right? I would say like about a 12 cents, a 10 cents range. That has been the range over the past 7 to 8 months, right? And we are seeing some signs of the trend. All right, look at this right here. So as I mentioned, it was pretty much in a downtrend since like 2022, 2021. All right, you can see the moving averages were pointing down, red below the blue, prices pushing lower. It broke certain support like the 165. Look at this right here. We broke the 165. We broke this like 157 support level as well, which now is the resistance level. Look at this right here. Support turn resistance. In fact, I think today the high is at about 1.57. So 157 would be that immediate resistance level, right? So we have kind of like traded lower since like 2021, 2022, and it was a bit of a downtrend until over the past few months that downtrend seemed to have stopped, right? That means we did not actually break in support and head to a new low. I mean, we were still holding quite well above the 145 support levels. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. At least we don't like break 145 and go to 130 or 120 and all that. No, right? We were supported quite well above 145, but it hasn't really pushed to an uptrend yet. Not yet, but there are some signs of it. Look at this right here. You can see that the moving averages in terms of the red and blue line, you can see they are starting to flatten out. They are starting to flatten out right now. So that's a good sign. All right. Of course, eventually, if we do break the 158 level, 158, 157, great. Potentially, we can start to see the uptrend start to form up much more clearer, all right, and that would be if we break the 157, 158. I think that's where the moving averages, the red and the blue line, will start to cross one another, and you'll eventually start to point up as well as we kind of like trade higher all the way to maybe like 165. 165 would be this immediate resistance level right here. That's where you can see some profit taking, and after 165, potentially we might head towards the next target, which can be all the way to maybe about like 175. I think that could be kind of like the next upside targets after 165. But I will not draw that first. I think it's still a little bit too far right now. I think 165 would be the immediate resistance. We want to break the 157 to 158 right now. So this is Wing Tai. Not really impacted that much. I mean, we kind of like sold off last week when the ABSD hike news came out, but we were still holding above that 145 support level, right? So it's still holding quite well. Not much of a concern as long as we stay above 145. That is good. We might just be consolidating still, right? You can see right now we are here, so we might just consolidate up and down here, and eventually we break that, 157, 158. That is where the uptrend can start to form up. Okay guys, so there we have it. I've pretty much covered the 5 most popular property stocks in the Singapore market: City Development, Propnex, APAC Realty, UOL, and finally Wing Tai. And kind of given you guys a bit of an understanding of what has happened in terms of the new ABSD hikes that have played out over the past 1 week and how it has kind of like affected prices for this property stock. So I hope like this video. It's a little bit long, alright, but you can kind of like skip to certain parts or certain stocks that you like or you want to pay a bit more attention to. For me personally, I feel that, as I mentioned, I do like Propnex a little bit more. I feel that it has been in an uptrend for quite a while. It has given out a bonus issue, prices has adjusted downwards, and the uptrend still looks quite intact. In fact, I think it can push even higher as long as those supports that I mentioned are holding quite well. Alright, so I hope you like this video. You have taken note of some of the levels that I talked about for these stocks, and make sure you smash the subscribe button as well. That will really help out the channel and you don't miss out on any videos like this, and give me a like as well. That will really help out. So Joey here, thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to see you in the next video. Take care.